Good evening, everybody. The Hibbing Public Utilities, March 19th, 2024 Commission meeting is called to order. All commissioners are present with the exception of Commissioner Bayless. First will be adds or deletes.
Commissioner Hart, I'd like to add item 7D to declare vacant position and approve internal and external advertising for accounting coordinator position.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Will be add item 7D. Any other adds or deletes? Not, we'll move to item number 3, approval of the minutes of the February 27th and March 12th, 2024 meetings.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Commissioner Stansted, support by Commissioner Stokes to approve the minutes of the February 27th and March 12th meetings. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 4, citizens forum. We haven't been presented with anything. We'll move on to item 5, the consent agenda. Approve invoices greater than 1,000 and approve the bills and ACH transfers dated February 24th to March 15th, 2024. Item 5B, approve the payroll paid and overtime report for the March 7th, 2024 pay date. Item 5C, approve request for contribution to the Hearts for Hospice in the amount of $500. Item 5D, approve request for contribution to Hello Range in the amount of $500. Wish of the commission?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Stansted to approve consent agenda items 5A through D. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Move on to financials and risk management. Item 6A, formally request City of Hibbing collaboration for the 2024 PFA funding application. Mr. Peterson, please.
Thank you, Chair Hart. Citizens at home, I think we all know how successful our financing was last year for our water main capital improvement program. Hibbing Public Utilities saved over $1.5 million versus a market rate borrowing for our permanent replacements of our water mains and water treatment plant. And this item 6A is to request the city's continued support for another PFA loan application this year and to get the ball rolling early in the year. There is a workshop tomorrow for the City Council where Chair Hart and I would like to attend and have a letter for you all to sign if you agree to pass it, to formally request the support of Hibbing throughout this process. And the funding is a joint effort between the City of Hibbing and the public utilities so that we can have the lowest cost interest rates for our ratepayers. And it's been very successful in the past. So with that in mind, I'd like to just mention that we expect to apply for between $5 and $6 million again this year for the water main capital improvement plan. And this would get the ball rolling for that.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. I'll make a motion to approve the request for support of the PFA funding application.
I'll second.
Motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Sandsted to approve the request for HPU's funding application. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 6B, approve engineering recommendation on public bid 2024-01 distribution regulator to consider purchase of 18 units from Wesco in the amount of $763,020. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair
Or
Hart.
Joe Peterson?
And Mr. Peterson, if you wouldn't mind stepping up as well. And Commissioners, I'd like to introduce you to Joe Peterson from Iron Range Engineering, who's been doing the project management and procurement for our 3 substation projects.
So, as you know, we went out for bid for the regulators with the rest of the transformers and switchgear. We got one bid only, and it wasn't complete. I worked with the vendor trying to get the bid complete and move things along. They weren't able to do that in a reasonable time frame, and we saw opportunity to save lead time and cost by going back out for bid again. We did. We received bids from 2 vendors this time. Both are reputable units, good quality, things like that. The second bid came in substantially lower cost and shorter lead time. So the recommendation I put together looks at leveraging this opportunity not only to get the units we initially needed, but looking at leveraging it, knowing prices are going to go up in the future, and supply chain problems may continue. So leveraging to use the same amount of money we'd initially looked at, but actually get 18 units instead of 15, and also to get extended warranties on these units. That would take it from a 12-month, 18-month warranty to a 36, 42-month. So substantially giving the opportunity to protect the investment.
For those watching at home, could you just describe what a regulator does?
Yeah. So a voltage regulator is part of the electric system. As the energy goes through the power lines, it has losses, voltage fluctuates, it may drop, it may raise. A voltage regulator keeps it in the band you want it to be. So it minimizes damage to equipment while putting it at a optimum efficiency amount. So these are basically the best way to stretch your system for maximum capacity while still keeping things operating the way you need them to. And typically, like transformers, I think everybody in the electric world is aware of supply chain. Regulators and transformers have gone to substantial lead times, costs have went through the roof. So, these are a big portion of the investment for the substation projects, and I think we came back with a pretty good value option with these bids.
Thank you, Joe. Anybody have a question for Joe?
Just Joe, out of curiosity, how long do one of these regulators last?
The controls are probably the shortest lasting piece just because they're digital, but you're looking at least a 20 to 30 year time frame for the unit. If you replace the controls, you're probably looking at least 30 to 40 years plus.
Okay, so with adding these extra ones, I mean, wherever they would be stored,
So
they
we
might be stored for 20 or 30 years?
would look at, currently there are 5 feeders in the system. Most likely they would go into a 6th feeder to break up the load. And what this does is gives an opportunity to increase reliability because an interruption on one feeder where it would have taken 20% of the customers, roughly speaking, might be 16%.
Okay.
And it also, then it's a in-place contingency. So if you have problems, if you have maintenance, you can shift load to work around it conveniently and readily.
So you're adding these to the
Yeah.
actual system?
Yeah, they would not just sit on the shelf.
Okay.
We would leverage the value right from the start.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to purchase 18 units from Wesco in the amount of $763,020.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Sandsted, support by Commissioner Stokes to approve the purchase of the voltage regulators from Wesco in the amount of $763,020. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joel.
Item 6C, review ST Cotter extension for the turbine generator 3 rebuild. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, Kurt, can I ask you to please step up to the podium? We received notification from ST Cotter that they feel an extension of the contract is the desired approach for them to ensure the work they're doing in the power plant is completed. And as Pete Adams had expressed to me over the phone, that it is to recuperate profit that they haven't been able to make up elsewhere on the project. And that when I asked for some negotiations on these proposed rates, he said the only way they'd be able to justify reducing it would be if there was more work in the future for ST Cotter. And so I promised I would present this letter and to be in spirit with our conversations. And so I'd like to turn it over to Kurt, if you could just describe a little bit of what's going on here.
Good evening. I wasn't part of that kind of conversation, but I have what I've seen. SD Cotter is requesting a change order due to the extension of the project past the base contract time. The project base contract was started, January 3rd of this year, and was set to be completed on February 28th of this year. SC Cotter did provide us with a schedule outlining, showing how they would use 7 40-hour weeks to complete the schedule. They did start on January 3rd, and the project began with the dismantling of the turbine. The turbine, the rotor, and diaphragms were completely removed and shipped for cleaning on January 11th. A repair report and a change order were submitted by ST Cotter to us on the 19th of January. This started, I'll use it started a negotiation process between us and ST Cotter on the extent of damages to the diaphragms and the amount of, and the rotor and the amount of repairs that would be needed. We authorized the repair of the diaphragms with change order number 7 on the 1st of February, and the rotor minimum repair change order was negotiated down to a minimum repairs on our rotor on the 10th. Change order number 10 that was approved on February 28th, which would be the former end date of the project. The extent of the repairs, the time frame needed for the negotiation process has resulted in a project delay of approximately 4 to 5 weeks. The impact of this delay has caused ST Cotter some additional costs, and they listed out their costs to me in a spreadsheet, which we all went over. There were some schedule changes. They had to move their operations from 4 10-hour shifts to 6 10-hour shifts to meet our April startup. They ended up increasing their main hours from their base contract from the estimated. They added an additional 498 hours. I had gone through and estimated about 500-ish was about the number I figured they needed to finish out the project. They also had additional mobilization charges. They had to move people around to accommodate the extended time. Tooling and third-party rentals. And there also was increase in per diem breakout of 200 folks. I broke it down in costs. The mobilization was around $8,000. The additional hours were about $85,000. Per diem was $37,000, and tool rental was $36,000, for a total change order amount of $166,692. Putting that in perspective, perhaps with the rest of the project, the base bid from ST Cotter was $557,213. Change orders up to change order number 9, the last one, are numbered up to $158,256. This extension would require $166,692, paying us a total project final estimate of $882,161. Initially, when I started this project, I gave an engineer's budgetary estimate of $1.2 million, which still puts us in the good for $317,000. The only detriment I see so far to the project is that the turbine rotor was minor repaired, not major work, so a lot of it was left undone. So the estimated rotor life, as we see it today, is approximately 3 years. The rotor has been installed, the cover has been installed and torqued on, and they're proceeding with the alignment. We expect to have the turbine ready for startup the first week of April to meet our deadline. Any questions or anything that I left undone?
Not
Sir.
related to you, Kurt. We should stand for a correction in the minutes here. 6D and 6C are reversed in our order. So we're actually looking at 6D for SD Cotter here.
Yeah, I noticed.
Okay, so I have no questions for you.
Okay, that's why I didn't hear you very well.
Thank you, Kurt. If anybody else does.
Thanks, Kurt. Jesse?
So, Kurt, in your opinion, I couldn't quite hear what you said there because of the echoing, but, so you're saying that, can you just repeat what you said at the very end there about like the comparison and the pricing to what we originally bid?
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you, sir.
Could you just repeat what, I couldn't understand you because of the echoing in the microphone.
Yes.
You talked about the original price of 500 something.
Yes,
and the
okay,
ex-
yes,
the
that- yes.
additions.
The base bid,
Maybe even just move that out of the way. Just talk to me.
Oh, we can't do that.
Okay. Go ahead.
The base bid was $557,000. I'll start with the big numbers. The change orders to date, up to number 9, we have 10 change orders to date on the books, but the ones we've approved so far, $158,000. This extension will be $166,000. The total estimate would then be $882,000 for the turbine finished. My original budgetary estimate, which I gave to Luke, was $1.2 million, and we're about $317,000 less my original estimate.
Okay.
However, there's one detriment, that the turbine rotor has been minor repaired, not major repaired, and it's good for it's probably a 3-year life on her for the next major.
Thank you,
Does that help?
yeah.
I can show you the numbers too.
No, hearing it helped. Thank you very much. I'm good.
You are good.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, to approve the change order in the amount of, I have to go back, 166,692.24.
I'll second.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to correct that. It's an extension, not a change order. It's the extension I'm approving, correct? That's what we're doing? Okay. The extension in the amount of $166,692.24.
I could maybe clarify, Commissioner Sandsted.
Please.
Per the document submitted by ST Cotter, they recognize it as a change order because they're extending the length of the contract and they want more money for it. So it is, I think, and Kurt, I think would agree with me, it is a change order to the contract, right, Kurt?
That they're sending on their change order form.
Right, right.
Thank you, Mr. Borland. So I don't know that it'd be in the Hibbing Public Utilities' best interest to approve this change order as it's presented. I think there's more negotiations that could go on to solve this. So I'm going to make a motion to deny it.
So you have, sorry, Chair, you have a motion and a second to approve it right now.
Oh, really? Oh,
So Commissioner Sandsted and Commissioner Babbage made a motion to accept the 166.
all right.
So you can certainly have discussion over that.
No, that's fine.
motion.
The motion is second. I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
So,
that's right.
Yeah, I disagree. I think it should be negotiated, but that's my opinion on it. So, any other discussion? None?
So what would happen here, Andy, if the commission rejected this change order?
So, Chair, members of the commission, and I did have a conversation with Kurt about this change order last week. As I read the general forms of the contract, and this has been submitted as a change order because you're changing the number, there are some timelines built into that change order system to process those and accept those. And per my reading of it, it's the engineer's decision to decide whether or not the change order should be accepted or not. And then either party, if they don't like that, could appeal. It sounds as if, and Kurt can correct me if I'm wrong, you're recommending that this should be approved, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So if in fact I think the commission didn't support it, I think per my reading of the contract, there's a separate article about section 12 about going into mediation to try and resolve your issue. Now, if you can negotiate it quicker than formal mediation, that would be great. But that, per my reading of the contract anyway, that's my understanding of it. And I realize ST Cotter in their letters to you have said, time is of the essence. I agree with that entirely, but they also accepted the timeline for the change order system to be played out. It doesn't mean that they should stop working. It just means that this should be resolved through the contract. So if Mr. Peterson's able, if you don't accept the bid tonight, if he's able to negotiate something and get it back promptly to you, you can resolve the issue. Obviously, I don't know what ST Cotter's feelings are, if they're going to follow up and finish the work regardless, or whether they're going to do something else. That's entirely speculation.
Mr. Chair? Yeah. Point of clarification, Mr. Borland, if the council has a tied vote, does the vote fail?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Peterson, do you want to weigh in on this? Do you have any thoughts?
You know, I stand ready to act upon the commission's decision here tonight, whether approved or denied. I think Kurt did a very nice job of laying out the facts. I do wish ST Cotter had been a little more forthright in acknowledging the 30-day time requirement for change orders in the contract, so we would not be here in the first place, and to get surprised at the last minute with all, for the $37,000 of per diem, which we explicitly denied on the first phase of the contract. So long story short, I understand they have a legitimate claim to ask for more money. I believe that we also have a legitimate process to go through, seek final resolution. So whichever will of the commission, it would certainly be some more work for us over the next few days and weeks to negotiate with them, but prepared to do that, if that's the will of the commission.
The one thing I would maybe just vote, sorry, Mr. Babich, I was just going to comment that if the general manager was able to negotiate a better price or a different result, I would encourage him to reach out possibly to the commission to have a special meeting to address this point, just because of the timeline to get this done, and with your MISO requirements, time is of the essence to try and get it resolved, if you don't approve the change order as presented. Thank you.
And that was going to be my specific, like, what are we talking about with the MISO time?
Well, I mean, we are doing all of this in good faith. I mean, we're not trying to deny any efforts of, or people to get properly compensated. However, there is a process, and I do not believe that they have the right to pull off project based on agreed to negotiation process. So we would be negotiating while they're working.
For the contract language, I agree with the general manager. It doesn't necessarily say that you get the right to pull off the job if there's an issue. It seems to contemplate you're going to go to mediation to try and resolve that issue if you can't resolve it faster.
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering if there's something missing from my packet. It says, see the attached letter or attached letter. I don't have the letter.
There's a slight mix-up in the paging of the packets, and we apologize. The tabs got inserted
You see that?
somewhat. The letter that is attached to this is behind the superheater bid. It's this one. This is the
Got it.
letter. I apologize for
Nope, that's okay.
that. So in there, you can see how they charged an additional mobilization charge, a blended rate differential for above, so this is extra cost per hours above the base rate in the contract, and then additional per diems, which we did not allow any per diems on the base scope, and then additional equipment. So in my view, this is, I think I would feel better if we negotiated this down.
So for a point of clarification on what you said earlier, ST Cotter did not adhere to the contract in terms of the days allocated for a change order or spelt out for a change order. They exceeded that.
It was less, they expected, I'm sorry if I could, Chair. In the contract, it contemplates 30 days for a change order to be approved. They are using the fact that it took us a couple of weeks to approve a change order as a reason for the delay of the project, and contrary to the 30-day required timeline. So the justification for the commission's delay in deciding, I personally take issue with, because we had up to 30 days to decide. And so I think, in my personal view, that this isn't the best way for SD Cotter to ensure good customer satisfaction from the part of Hibbing Public Utilities. And at the very least, I'd like to give them the benefit of the doubt to do better.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Peterson, in the letter that is attached, now that I have it, thank you, the amounts that are spelt out in this document, other than the per diem in the amount of $37,433, are there other dollar amounts that you feel are inaccurate or out of line?
I believe a lot of this is unnecessary, personally. I mean, we are, we're in a contract. It's not a time to provide different rates for things. So, with that alone, I mean, there is a contractual basis, for them to ask for this, but there's not a requirement that we approve it.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to rescind my motion.
Okay.
I already said mine as well.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to make a motion to deny this change order as presented. For support?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next item. And they are flip-flopped in our book, but we're going to move to award public bid 2024-02, boiler number 2, superheater replacement to Stack Brothers in the amount of $948,000. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, I'd just like to update my recommendation that I provided in documentation. After reviewing the bids more and noting that Jamar, while they provided a workaround, their bid, in fact, did not include Addendum 3, which was the asbestos abatement addendum in their bid. And instead, they said that they would be able to hire a third-party abater if they found lead or asbestos in it, and charge us for it. But that is not per the bid specs as provided. So I would just like to amend the letter I put out there to say that we received only one valid bid, because Stack Brothers was the only bid that satisfied all 3 addendums. So my recommendation to the commission is to reject Jamar's bid and to award the bid to the low bidder of Stack for boiler 2 superheater replacement.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. I reviewed all the bids personally and all the documentation, and I would agree with Mr. Peterson's assessment on awarding it to Stack. Mr. Stokes?
I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kurt, did you go over the tube specs? Are they exceeding what we had in there currently? I'm assuming that you were on this.
Both bids met the specifications for tubes and materials.
I know, but,
We're getting T5 material.
so that exceeded what was recommended for boiler 2 as a, I believe is that a Foster Wheeler boiler?
It says Foster Wheeler.
Yeah, so does that exceed, because we seem to run high superheat temps on that boiler?
I'm sorry,
So
it's
I'm
a
just
Wix.
wondering
It's a
if-
Wix. It's a Wix. Both
A
of
Wix
those are Wix
boiler, excuse
boilers.
me, yes.
And yes, we have higher temperatures on that's why the superior tubes have failed. We put P1 or plain carbon steel material back in both times. They've been replaced. And this time I was actually able to calculate, based on operating parameters, what the actual temperatures are. And then we backed out what we needed for material. So we actually went with, we could have gone with P4, 1.5 or 1.25 chrome. We went with 2.5 chrome or P5 material because it was virtually the same price, but you get a better material.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Peterson, do you want two separate motions, or do you want it in a one motion for
I'll defer to
Mr. Borland?
Council Borland.
If you're discussing Mr. Peterson's recommendation about rejecting the bid, probably should put that in a separate motion first as well.
Thank you, Mr. Borland. I'll make a motion to reject Jamar's bid in the amount of $83,175 for failure to recognize addendum number 3 in the bid documents.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Stokes to reject Jamar's bid. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I'll make a motion to accept Stack Brothers' bid in the amount of $948,000.
Second.
Motion by Chair Hart, support by Commissioner Stokes to award public bid 2024-02 Boiler 2 Superheater Replacement to Stack Brothers. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Move on to policy and governance. Item 7A, approve hiring of Jill Zoller for finance and customer service supervisor. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, ahead of you is the recommendation to hire Jill Zoller as the Finance and Customer Service Supervisor. Following discussions at the February 27th regular meeting and the March 12th working session, you'll note we added some additional responsibilities in this position to align organizational needs to the customer service supervisor to ensure that we have, the right focus on there. And so with that, we would now have the accounting coordinator and warehouse reporting in through this position as well, centralize all of our finance and customer service work in one area while we are still looking for the permanent controller. So with that in mind, I am recommending that we hire Jill Zoller.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Sandsted to approve the hiring of Jill Zoller for finance and customer service supervisor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 7B, approve hiring Peter Jensen for the open lineman position. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, if you recall, we recently approved the opening for a lineman position due to a vacating employee. And we are also pleased to note that Peter Jensen has applied for this. He's one of the 3 external candidates that we've had. And as a past employee of the line crew, we are happy to welcome him back, and he will require minimal training. So with that in mind, I would recommend hiring Peter Jensen for this apprentice lineman.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just a question for you, Mr. Peterson. Is he returning at the same level, same pay as previous, no change?
That's correct. He's returning as an apprentice
Thank you.
lineman as he left.
Thank you. I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Sandsted, support by Commissioner Stokes to approve the hiring of Peter Jensen to the lineman position. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 7C, approve advertising for up to 12 summer student positions. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, ahead of you is the request to advertise for hiring up to 12 seasonal summer student workers to assist the utility in a variety of areas. We have an extensive amount of lawns to mow in the summer around all the wells and all the water treatment plants and also the other buildings. With the heat crews, we need to paint our gas meters, which is not only just an aesthetic thing, it's actually a public safety item to have, make sure there's no corrosion on our gas meters. At the admin building, we'll have a number of office duties and organization to help out with, as well as in the power plant. There's janitorial, vegetation painting, and light labor work, as well as some groundsman work for the line crew. So with that in mind, I'd like to start advertising for these to see who we can recommend for seasonal employment.
Mr. Chair? Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about the rate of pay for these positions? Are they static, or do they fluctuate from the different areas?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. The line crew groundsman, because it is typically somebody who's coming through as in the summer between line school, they're very specialized, we pay $25 an hour for that. The other positions, we pay $17 an hour for, typically, up to $17. We'll be advertising that stuff.
Thank you. With that, I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we approve and post.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Sandsted, support by Commissioner Stokes to approve the hiring up to 12 summer student positions. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next item, item 7D, declare vacant and approve internal posting and external advertisement for accounting coordinator position. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Chair Hart. Commissioners, as I mentioned, this is the added to the agenda to formally declare the accounting coordinator position vacant following the resignation from Whitney Monroe. Whitney has added a huge improvement to our accounting processes, and she'll be sorely missed. But we also would like to consider recruiting for this position as soon as possible. We have started our audit today, and we're in a very good position going into this. And it's so that we don't go backwards, I'm recommending that we advertise for this as soon as possible.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to thank Whitney for her service at the public utility. She did a nice job, and I appreciate that. And I'd like to make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Stokes, support by Commissioner Babich to approve the internal posting and external advertisement for accounting coordinator position. Any further discussion? Hear none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. What was that? Any old or new business that needs to come before the commission before we adjourn? Not, do I have a,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Sandsted, support by Commissioner Stokes to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.